Hello, everyone, for another session of the Vibe Thursdays. We have some great people there. Today, we have a very special guest, Patrick Skinner. Thank you all for joining. I see some faces there, Sergo, Kevin, all of the citizens that are here. More are going to come in a while. Hello, all of you watching this recording later in the future, too. I'm going to give a quick rundown of the reason that we are here, and then I'm going to introduce Patrick for him to share his vibes and tips and traps mastering MCP servers and all of the cool techniques that you want to apply for your vibe coding sessions. So huge news, we have almost 20K on our fund. Yay! Thank you all for your donations, for your participation. We have almost 40 projects submitted. Those two things go hand in hand. It's not total victory yet, but we are very close to the target of $20,000 as we advertise, as we put ourselves up to. So it's a big win. And yes, we are going to confirm a Vibe-a-thon next session. Make sure to join or to follow our socials. We're going to speak about the Vibing Coding Hackathon to give more opportunities and more support for all of you vibing coding with us. If you haven't already submitted your project, come here and submit, because we got a little extension of 2 weeks for the voting period. If you come here to the top 5, you're going to be accepted for the match funding from Artsen, so you're going to be able to receive a part of these grants when you sell your artifacts here in the fund. So it's going to be a good starting money, starting capital for you to put your projects out there as serious projects, as customer oriented, revenue generated projects, right? No strings attached, no equity, nothing. It's just pure grants in the form of match funding for you to get your project started. And if you need more support, more guidance on how to get started, if you don't know how to vibe code yet, make sure to join our community into luma.lu.ma venture miner. I'm going to send this link in the chat. You can come here and pick the Builder membership if you submitted to Artsen. If not, you can become a sponsor here. All of this money is going to go for the fund, for the Artsen fund, for funding you back. And it's going to be matched again $1 by $1. So it's a very good deal. And we have this amazing series of speakers, great speakers in the past. Now we have Patrick today, Austin Griffith next Tuesday, and then Naruto from Avail next Thursday. A lot of great speakers to come here, more to be confirmed, leading to one biggest Vibe-a-thon that we're going to announce next week. Okay, so stay tuned, be part of our community, and you're going to be in the correct path for becoming a master vibe coder, a well-funded, well-trained master vibe coder. Okay. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our special guest, Patrick Skinner. Would you like to share some of our vibes, some of our wisdom, your knowledge about how to get the LLMs, next token prediction machines to actually code for us? What are your takes on this?
Oh, man. Okay. We're going to have some fun today. I'm super excited. First off, I need the alpha. What's Austin going to be talking about? Because I'm definitely coming to that one.
Maybe Kevin should know.
Dude's a master educator. I'm looking forward to that one.
Probably just build something with scaffold ETH, you know.
I should have fucking known that. I was in his DMs just a few days ago about that. Yeah, I should have known that. Okay, cool. All right, yeah. And then what's Naruto teaching? I'm really curious about that one too. Okay, I just DM him. I'm in his DMs every day, so I'll figure that out. But no, guys. Okay, all right. Let me go ahead and share my screen because I'm stoked to be here. We're gonna have immaculate vibes. It's gonna be fun. Today, I'm talking about MCP service. Everybody can see my screen? Good to go?
Yeah,
yes?
It's loading here. I pinned at your screen, and everyone should be able to see the big screen now. Okay, good.
Sweet, cool. Okay, all right, excellent. Yeah, I can see all of you. Rule number 1 is there's barely any rules. So feel free to chime in. I can see everybody on this screen, and I can see my slides on this screen. So like if you want to just raise, if you're shy, you want to raise your hand, go ahead. I can see it. Yep, see it, perfect. Yep, and then but if you you could just also just cut me off too, totally fine. Jump in if you got questions or anything like that. Super duper excited. Okay, all right. So we're gonna talk about unlocking AI potential with Model Context Protocol, and this is honestly, it's gonna be really fun. So let's get into this. First, let's talk about me. All right, I love this quote, and I love that it kind of throws people off. Like, why the fuck would you have this in a slideshow about MCP servers or anything like that? But okay, so it's be polite, be professional, but have a plan to kill everybody in the room. This is like my favorite like motivational quote. A little bit of background on me is, yes, I am a software engineer. I'm a senior developer relations engineer. I've been working in the Web3 space for about 4 years now. I'm currently a senior developer relations engineer in the Arweave ecosystem. But you open up my time capsule, and many years ago, I was actually a former special operations combat medic in the U.S. Army. I was an Army Ranger, paratrooper, all that crazy stuff. And I used to specialize in like combat search and rescue and all kinds of crazy shit like that. I'm surprised my body still works. So I definitely put it through the ringer. And fast forward a little bit, this is kind of how I got into like technology and Web3. I was a math casualty coordinator for the earthquake in Haiti back in 2010. I experienced and had to actually combat a lot of like human trafficking attempts, which was pretty crazy at the time. Easiest time to make people disappear is a natural disaster. You always just blame the hurricane or whatever, happened. And so I left the military because that was kind of like my new passion is fighting human trafficking. So I joined a couple human trafficking interdiction teams in the contractor world, if you've ever heard of that, and loosely mercenary, if you want to use that term. But basically, gun for hire, medic for hire rather, for human trafficking interdiction. Used to work in the Middle East and Northern Africa quite a bit for a few years. And then roughly about 2015, my wife and I said, we want to have a family, but this is not the career for it. So I'm like Googling, what's the safest thing I could do and make decent money? And of course, software engineer was like really high up on the list. So I started my software engineering education in late 2015, had a couple startups in the Web 2 world. And then I exited my last startup with profit, right when COVID kicked off. And I'm kind of chilling, nothing going on. Like, what do I do now? And, I started learning about Web3 technology, figured out, maybe I could try this whole like authenticate physical products on chain kind of thing. So I had a startup for that. Did not go well. It did not go well. I was the new kid on the block in Web3, and it kind of flunked. But I did find myself in Developer DAO, and Developer DAO was it was really busy back then. Still an active community, but back then it was this bustling community of engineers and getting to know each other, and the best place to learn anything about, honestly, at that time, about crypto and the early days of AI. And then I've always fallen in love with like just education and teaching and things like that. So I've always enjoyed the presentation and so like that's why I've got this like crazy studio and stuff like that, as you can see. And that's how I found myself as the developer relations engineering side of things, where I get to both be on like the cutting edge of like what it is to to be building in Web3 and everything. And then as I'm teaching myself, it's good to take that information and teach others. So that's how I ended up in the developer relations world. If you want to follow me, you can find me on X. It's this little name here, P Skinner Tech. That's pretty much everything. You can find me on YouTube with that name. You can find me on X. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me pretty much anywhere with that name, Telegram, all that stuff. Feel free to be in my DMs. I'll do the best I can to answer. Okay, cool. So let's jump in. I did see a message here. 1 second. Let me see what that was. Where did the comments go? I keep looking in the middle, looking at like Zoom, but here we are. Let's see.
The bottom, yeah. The bottom right. I can tell you when there are questions about
Nice.
the content too. And
Cool.
I'll be a wingman
Excellent.
here. Don't worry.
Yeah, Yeah, thank you. Okay, so what is MCP servers? Okay, so it's a standard. Basically, it's just a standard. Now, what does it mean to have a standard? So those that aren't in like deeper in the engineering world, standards are just like, okay, we kind of all agree on like how to build out this thing. It's a standard. Okay, we talk about standards all the time in like the Web3 world, and in the AI space, you would probably look at standards as like these open source, standards. We've all agreed to build these certain things out so that they're consistently compatible. Okay, so it's a standardized interface, allows developers to connect AI applications to various data sources and tools. I'm going to give you the easy definition for this. I look at MCP servers as, I would say, a Vibe coders app inside of like an iPhone. That's kind of like the best way you can really look at that. There's a great question. What is the fundamental difference between like an MCP server and a RAG? RAGs don't have standards, okay? So RAGs are basically, you can build out a RAG internally, and it's going to probably have, like, you're not really relying on standards, and you're not publishing it so that other people can use this RAG. Or the other part is that the onboarding experience of using an MCP service versus a RAG, there's usually a pretty heavy setup when it comes to using RAGs versus like an MCP server. It's like, to be perfectly honest right now, there's like maybe 1 or 2 steps to setting up an MCP server that wasn't built by you. But like, I would say in the next few, I would say months, you're going to be installing MCP servers like you're installing freaking add-ons inside of like, Cursor or anything like that. MCP servers are, they're going to be very, very standardized to the point where like it's going to be very, very easy to rotate in different MCP servers depending on your project. But so hopefully I answered that question really, really well. Feel free to say, no, that was fucking bad. So anyways, and sorry, I'm a former military guy, obviously, so you will hear me curse. I apologize for that. I should have put that disclaimer up front and center. And I'm not drinking, I promise. This is just a soda. So the no custom integrations piece. Okay, so it means it's plug and play. Like MCP servers, you can go to like MCP server marketplaces and look for things that might be on the list of your tech stack that you're building with. It could be a lot of different things. We're going to talk about a range of different MCP servers that you can build with, and where to find them, and then how to make sure they're secure. Okay. By providing a standardized interface, MCP enables developers to easily connect AI applications to diverse data sources and tools, unlocking new possibilities for AI-powered solutions. Okay, core components, you've got like your resources, you've got your tools, and you've got your prompts. So MCP servers have a mixture of all 3 of these different things. So sometimes MCP servers could just be data sets. So you will find a lot of different MCP servers that are, to be perfectly honest, it's just documentation. It's just giving context to the AI that you're using to better handle the prompts that you're working with. Okay, and so like I can talk. I'll show you a little bit of like a difference, but you're going to start finding that a lot of these projects are going to have front and center on the very front of the documentation page. You're going to see, download this MCP server, rather than just like reading the documentation, learning how to use, just plug and play this thing, okay? And vibe out, bro. That's it. And you're gonna see a lot of that. And all it is just context. Now, tools. Tools is a different thing. You're gonna start seeing MCP servers that are something like, maybe they build out tests inside of your specific project. Maybe it will do benchmarking. Maybe making sure that the AI is, that maybe you're building like an AI project and it's setting up benchmarks so that way you can make sure that you're getting the most optimal outputs, or your token utilization is at the best rate or anything like that, or you're not overspending on your models that you're specifically using inside of your AI project. Those are going to be like tools. Okay, now prompts. So these are basically MCP servers that are going to be like a script of prompts. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure some of you have seen what they used to have like this add-on library inside of like ChatGPT, which is basically the add-on library was just prompts. It was like pre-prompts basically. And you put in the add-on library kind of thing, and then like it was just a pre-prompt to better handle the prompts that you were doing. And so it was just kind of maximizing the output of like what you were trying to do. And so like you're gonna find MCP servers that are honestly just prompts. And so when you prompt your AI inside of your IDE, your coding terminal or anything like that, you're gonna get more accurate responses because it gives it more context through the well-descripted prompt inside of an MCP server. Okay, so again, these are like apps inside of your IDE. So moving on, security and privacy. Okay, MCP server emphasizes a host mediated security model to ensure AI systems interact with external data sources securely and responsibly. Key security features include process isolation, path restrictions, encrypted transport, and authentication. These measures safeguard against unauthorized access and data breaches. Okay, so this was an initial concern. It's still a concern today. You want to be careful about where you get your MCP servers. You want to try to make sure that your MCP servers are coming from valid sources, because the last thing you need is to download an MCP server and then somehow it has the ability, like you prompt it, and then internally it's got a prompt to basically scrape your entire computer for like passwords or keys and stuff like that. You don't want that to happen. So try to make sure that you're getting your MCP servers from trusted resources. A good example of like a trusted resource is honestly, get it from the source. If I'm going to be getting let's say I'll get a MCP server from, what's a good one? Like Postgres. I want to get an MCP server specifically for handling like Postgres writing my SQL stuff. I want to get that directly from Postgres. I don't want to get it from some like other party. Now, and also if you're not an engineer, make sure that you are, it's even more important to get it from valid, authenticated sources, because you may not have the ability to read through the MCP server itself to identify vulnerabilities. Now, go ahead. I see a question.
Yeah, so I wonder what your thoughts are on then MCP servers being an attack, like a major attack vector.
I 100%
like
agree.
In the realm of crypto, right? So, yeah, I mean, do you think that there's going to be a whole like suite of tooling around that that's kind of like middleware or something? Like, what does the future look like for that? Because that sounds like a huge problem.
Okay, I'm going to give you the engineer answer first. But I agree with you that eventually there is going to be some sort of middleware, or what I'm kind of waiting for, and it's only a matter of time. I'm waiting for somebody to actually create like an authentication process for publishing MCP servers on marketplaces, which in my opinion, what it's going to be is, when you upload an MCP server, it's going to be like another MCP server that actually like goes through the MCP server to identify if it is okay. There's no vulnerabilities or any malicious scripts or anything like that in here. It's good to go inside of the marketplace. It checks out, whatever. And so I'm thinking that's kind of like the early step of like what it's going to look like. And then you're going to find these like 1, 2, 3 marketplaces of MCP servers where like, I trust this because every single MCP server that goes in here goes through some sort of like, test process to identify, vulnerability scripts or anything like that, or sorry, malicious scripts and everything. And so again, is that going to catch 100% of all of the, malicious scripts or the malicious MCP servers? Maybe, maybe not. So I still say, try to do your due diligence. Look for MCP servers that are being provided by, authenticated sources or anything like that. Look for the check mark on or whatever, on GitHub or whatever you're getting your MCP server from to validate that it is a genuine resource as an MCP server. So yeah, that is a good point. Oh, sorry. The engineer answer though is Docker it. Like every time you do anything, do it in Docker kind of thing. Test it out in Docker. Keep it inside of its environment, so that way it can't get outside of its environment. I'm not going to go into like Docker for vibe coders or anything because that is a rabbit hole for engineers, let alone just it took me over a month just to learn Docker. So I'm not going to do that to you guys. But if you've already been Docker pilled, Docker it. That's what I'm going to say. So go ahead.
Imagine having the AI to write your own MCP server for you to use for the AI to do the things.
Okay, so man, you ruined the end of this session. So I'm building an MCP server to build MCP servers. So that's coming. That's coming. And
what MCP server you're using for building them? Just kidding. We have questions here.
Exactly. Exactly. You got it. Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but do you have to have an MPC server to do agent-to-agent communications?
Oh, God, this is a great question. Oh, shit. All right. Okay, cool. All right, I can go down this rabbit hole. And this could turn, I don't want to turn this into like an hour-long conversation itself. Agent-to-agent. Okay, Sandy, have you heard of Google's agent-to-agent standard that came out?
Yep. Uh-huh.
Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. So they are building MCP servers around that standard. And you're going to see that a lot of these agents are going to start meeting up to this standard. Now, I think it's going to be very important that people, honestly, if you want to monetize an AI agent, you've got to meet this Google A2A. A2A being agent is shortened, sorry. But so yeah, that is coming. And so I would say that there isn't an MCP server specifically that I've seen yet, specifically for Google A2A yet, but you're seeing all of these other projects integrate A2A into like their agent models. I believe CDP has their agent kit. They're currently in the process of integrating A2A. I'm working with a payment monetization platform for agents. So like if you want to monetize your agent, it's called Nevermind, Nevermind, Nevermind.io. And you can actually like set up agents to be monetized, and people can actually query for your agents and then actually pay your agents to do certain things. We are in the process right now to actually set up A2A integration there. So you got to look at A2A very much as like very soon as like an MCP server standard. That is exactly what it is. It's a standard. And so everybody's going to go through the same process of like querying or searching for these other agents. And so, yeah, it's going to be important to have that. I would say that it's not, I would say A2A isn't in the vibe coding level quite yet. It's very, very soon. I'm telling you, like when I say soon, I'm like, give it a week or two kind of thing. And yeah.
And what about Fetch.ai? They claim to have an A2A framework for decentralized agents. Do you know anything about that? Do you know if that's true?
I'll check it out. I'm not 100% sure yet. The A2A thing. So I was in San Francisco when they actually announced it. I got to go to the live event and everything when they announced A2A, and it really freaking cool. And as soon as as soon as the event ended, they finished the presentation, everything. It's just a bunch of freaking engineers that are just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to integrate A2A to this. And we're all talking about like, okay, how do we do this? How do we do that? How are you going to do it? And how are you going to do it? And I'm going to do it this way. So like, as much as like you don't hear a lot of noise coming from like these AI engineers and everything about this process, they're being quiet because they're just like grinding out on this whole integration piece. And so I myself included, I'm actually integrating it for Nevermind right now. And so, so it's coming. Like my integration alone should be done I'll probably get it done over the weekend, to be honest. And so you're going to see a lot of these announcements of like, we integrated to A kind of thing. So I don't doubt that Fetch AI has done it. The problem is, it's just like, there's going to be a few early people that knocked it out really, really fast. It's just like, okay, why would I even like fetch for anything? Because you guys are the only ones I can fetch for right now. But give it a couple weeks and everybody's going to be able to meet this A standard.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
If I had $1 for every company say that they are doing decentralized agent to agent, I would have about $1,000, which is not much, but it still is a lot of money, right?
Yes. No, but it's true. Yeah, like you're talking about the whole. There's some sort of component that's decentralized. Never mind as like decentralizing the payment method of like between agent and then you got Eliza, you got Goat, you got all the others. Yeah. So that is 100% true. And everybody that says decentralized, just so you know, vibe coders, the word decentralized is like a sliding scale. It's like kind of decentralized or fully decentralized. So like, just keep that in mind. It's like, when you define anything as decentralized. I've been in the Web3 world a long time, so I know the laws of decentralization.
This slide goes from Bitcoin to Solana or something like that. Okay, just kidding. Skip that.
Yes, that's a good point. Okay, cool. So let me find my mouse goes from like screen to screen. So these are already a bunch of companies that are integrated with MCP servers, or they work with MCP servers, all that kind of stuff. For some reason, I don't have Cursor on here, but yeah, Cursor and stuff like that has like, they have a very easy patch in for MCP servers, all that stuff. I currently build with Cursor. That's kind of like my preferred go-to, but I've played with a little bit of everything: Windsurf, Lovable, Replit, all that stuff. Okay. Everybody's going to be using MCP for servers. It's like an Oprah Winfrey giveaway. All right. So use cases. You're going to see use cases for enterprise assistance. You're going to see use case for MCP servers for software development, natural language data access, and then also just desktop assistance. You're basically going to see MCP servers as like these applications, or this like a wrapper of an AI that does specific things. Essentially, as MCP servers continue to be built and be improved, you're going to see MCP servers basically become agents in essence. And so I currently look at MCP servers often, depending on what MCP server you're using, as just a very, very specialized AI component, AI app inside of your coding experience. Okay, but again, some of them are just data sets, some are just documentation, some are pre-prompts, and some are actual like AI tooling that helps improve your coding experience or just your application development experience. Okay, so process of like actually setting up an MCP servers. You go through the process of installing the MCP server, and you can actually do this like a lot of them established marketplaces or the MCP servers themselves have very specific instructions on how to do it, depending on what IDE you're using, like Cursor or VS Code or Windsurf or anything like that. Just follow the quick start guide. And because MCP servers are open source, I highly, highly, highly recommend that if you feel like the MCP server could be a little bit better and you have an idea to make it better, then make it better. Like the MCP servers are all considered open source. You should never install anything you can't see the code to, just so you know. And if you feel like, hey, I feel like it needs an improvement here, clone the repo, install it, use an MCP server to improve that MCP server, and push an update to it. Because we, especially us that come from the Web3 world, it's all about contributions. It's all about helping each other out. It's all about improving each other's experiences. So feel free to take an MCP server, improve it as best as you can, push it, and then if the owner of that MCP server finds that your update is valuable, then they'll merge it into the existing MCP server, and then you get to help out all kinds of other people that way. So it's a really good way to learn how to be kind of like that vibe coder to the engineer, how open source contributions work, because an MCP server in itself is an open source contribution. I have this idea, I could build out MCP servers and just hoard them and never share them, but that's very selfish. I want people to benefit from what I had an idea on and then share that with other people. And if the MCP server is getting tons of downloads, then obviously other people appreciate what I've built. Okay, unlocking AI potential with MCP servers. Honestly, that's exactly what we're doing. We're just taking these applications, open source, on this standard, and we're using these open source applications in order to be able to make our coding experience better, okay? All right, so I do want to show off a couple of things. Has anybody used Cursor Directory before? It may have been mentioned in a previous video or anything like that, or this might be new. So if it's new to you, then awesome. I'm going to show this off really, really quick. In Cursor Directory, oh, yeah, I actually went to this new slide, so I'm actually going to get out of this, and I'm just going to go to Cursor.directory. This used to be just rules for Cursor. I'm kind of guessing, but feel free to, tell me you're using something else. In the comments here, tell me what IDE you're using. Are you using Windsurf? Are you using Replit? Are you using Cursor? What do you guys use? So that way, I want to make sure I'm getting some context. Let's see. Cool. Cursor, Cursor, Cursor. Sweet. All right. Yeah, we're all Cursor pilled. That's what it looks like. Excellent. Okay, cool. Then you're going to love this. I'm going to just teach you guys a little bit about Cursor rules, okay? Let's talk about Cursor rules because there has been some updates on how Cursor rules works, okay? And what Cursor rules even do, all right? So let me go ahead and just spin up here. I'm going to go into, if I know how to do this, CD into dev, CD into, do I have demos in here? I think I have. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to make one. Okay, here we are. Demos. And CD into demos. Excellent. And then I'm going to just open up my IDE this way. Perfect. Okay, cool. All right. And let me just expand this out so that the blind can see. There we go. All right. So Cursor rules, for those that don't know, I'm going to go back to Arc really quick, and I'm going to go to the documentation for this. I'm going to talk about Cursor rules for AI. Cool. All right. This is something I cannot really impress enough. If you're a vibe coder, as vibe coders should, become experts in reading documentation. Because if you're really good at reading documentation and you understand what's happening with what you're trying to build with and whatever tools you're working with, then it makes you better at writing prompts. Because in order to understand what you're building with, you need to understand the context as to exactly how the tools work, okay? So you can sit there and say, use the hammer, but if the AI doesn't know how to go up and down with the hammer, then it doesn't understand how to, drive the nail. So make sure you understand how the tool works, okay? So always make sure you read into the documentation, whether it's for the IDE, Cursor IDE, whether it is for, any of the MCP servers you're using, whether it's for SQL, it's for OpenAI APIs, anything like that. Take the time to read. Become experts in reading documentation. And it's actually, as I'm saying that right now, it's really, really funny to say that because that's probably like the first thing software engineers hear when they go through their computer science degrees. Is like one of the first things you learn is documentation, documentation, documentation. Become an expert in reading documentation. Go ahead.
Yeah, Patrick, just to call it out that reading the documentations on how to use MCP servers on Cursor might be the last documentation you need to read about, right? Because then it's going to read automatically all of the other docs for you with LLMs. But at least this one, you need to get it correctly. The next one's
Yes.
okay, you are released from that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like, you know, my job as a developer relations engineer, it's so funny. DevRel's jobs have changed so much because first we wrote documentation for people, but now we write documentation for people and AI because there's a lot of AI input now happening through documentation. Really, really crazy stuff. So now you've got to like learn how to make sure that you're not over contextualizing or under contextualizing. You gotta get, like, meet yourself in the middle so that you're not boring the crap out of, you know, the readers, but you're also not leaving out any important context for the AI. It's crazy, crazy system. And then now when it comes to documentation writing. So yeah, anyways, let's get into this. So rules, okay. So you can, if you don't know this yet, you can write rules inside of your Cursor projects so that they continuously maintain some sort of rule that, or consistency, I should say. Rules do things like making sure that it understands consistently what project you're kind of building, or it could be that you're using one specific tool consistently. This could be something, and I'll show you guys the difference of like when a rule is being called all the time or when the rule is only being called sometimes. There's also another thing that you need to understand as a vibe coder, is context windows. When you're using an AI model, you need to understand that you want to have as accurate as possible of a response. Now, if you're over contextualizing, you're adding way too much context, then the AI gets a little bit confused and it tries to summarize and then contextualize itself, but then sometimes it's missing the information. So rules will help you stay consistent with that information if and when it's needed, or sometimes always needed sometimes. So I'll show you guys how to set this up really quick. I know I'm getting off the topic of like MCP servers, but this is like important for Cursor people. Anybody that already uses Cursor rules, understand that the .cursor rules file is deprecated or is deprecating. So like what it used to be, what it used to look like is I used to set up, like in the root of my file, I used to set up this whole file that says .cursor rules, and it looked like that. And then I would write out things about my project, and sometimes this file gets really long because you have this one single rule file for your entire project. And it's kind of, you got to look at this rules file as kind of like a pre-prompt for every single time I go to the right here and I prompt my AI. Okay, this could be something as simple as I am actively using PMPN, so like a package manager, PMPN, and I'm not using any of the following, and I'll put a colon here, and I'll just use this command to wrap my text, and then I'll just use bullet points to say I am not using, you know, NPM, I'm not using Yarn, I'm not using Bun, okay? Because sometimes you'll find that like you'll be using one package manager, but it falls back to the default of like NPM, or it falls to the default of what the documentation you fed it to is recommending. So if you want to consistently keep on one package manager, that's one way of doing it. But this is the old way of doing it. So let me show you the new way of doing it, and it's kind of a cool experience to do this if you haven't done it yet. Okay, so let's go ahead and delete this, and now you have a folder system for specific rules so that you're not over contextualizing, you're not taking up too much of the context window every single time. So what you're going to do is you're going to create this folder, and it's going to be .cursor/rules. Okay, so now it's a folder system, and I'm going to create a new file in this file. So now I'm going to create a file specifically for that package manager, PNPM thing. Okay, so I'm going to say PNPN.mdc. Okay, so for those that don't know, .md is short for markdown. It's a markdown file, which is the file that's typically used for just typical documentation. Now, MDC stands for Markdown Cursor. Okay, all right, so I created this rule, and now I see this new UI pop up. It's the rule type, and so this is specific to Cursor. Okay, and I'm going to click on this, and I want this rule to always be called. I'm going to say always. And then in this rule, I'm just going to say we're actively only using PNPN and we're not using any of the following. And then I'll put in, you know, NPN, yarn, and fun. Those are the popular package managers there. Okay. And so now what you'll find here is I have this file saved. Okay. And it's selected. So, did you have a question, Matt?
Because it was an accidental mic open.
Okay, cool. No worries. Okay, so this one's selected as always. So now let's just give an example. Okay. I'm going to close this file. And I don't have this file added as context to my chat, but it'll always be added. Okay. So I'm going to say, let's set up a Next.js application. Yeah. And the typical default for this is to use NPM, the normal node package manager. But you're going to find that it's actually going to prompt with PNPM because I set the rule for it. So I'll just hit enter. There we go. And it actually says PNPM. So that's like how a typical rule works, is making sure that you're staying consistent on certain points. Now, another thing about different rules too is that I can say rule.mdc, and in this rule, I can set it so that it's manual. So manual meaning I would have to call it. So I put the @ rule. Okay, so that rule is being added by me and it's being called by me. So there's maybe only specific times I'm using that rule. Okay, this could be related to specific documentation that I've copied or anything like that. Okay, and then a good example of a good rule for this is I like to build out in like ChatGPT. I like to build out roadmaps for my projects and a very clear technical roadmap. Okay, and then I'll put it as a rule, but I'll put it as a manual rule, and then I'll call that rule specifically when I need that rule so that it understands what step we're at in the developmental process of my project. So yeah, that's a manual rule versus a PNPM, like an always rule. Okay. All right. Now, sorry, going back to MPC server really quick. What am I on time? Okay, good. I'm on good on time. This was supposed to be an hour long, right? Not 30 minutes.
You can go up to 2 hours, 3 hours.
Okay, cool. All right.
The server is going to fall asleep and have breakfast. Just kidding. Keep going, bro.
Yeah. Okay, so let me see. So in the dot cursor, let me just pull up the chat real quick here because I saw a question here, making sure. Cool. All right. So in the dot cursor, we can set up different rules, including folders. Yes, that's a great one. So like if let's say I go to ChatGPT and I tell it to build out my roadmap, I'm also going to have it build out an architecture file. You're going to see a lot of that too. So I'm going to say, okay, map out the architecture of my project. What should the architecture of my project be? This is really, really great because a lot of engineers, we kind of forget, like, we just assume this, like, I have this architecture in mind. This is the architecture I build with all the time because maybe I saw a fucking YouTube video or something like that that's just used this architecture and it's just been ingrained in me forever. Or it's the architecture I learned in college, or it's the architecture that we use consistently at my last job. And so we sometimes forget that the AI doesn't always have the same architecture plans that we do. So it's, even as engineers or as vibe coders, it's very, very important to come to an agreement as to what your architecture will be inside of your project. So yes, if I'm in ChatGPT and I'm planning out my project and I planned out the roadmap and there's a ghost or something flickering my light, 1 second, and maybe he had a question about MCP servers. And so, you know, I want to make sure that me and the AI have agreed what the architecture is, and then I'll tell it, okay, spit it out as like an MD file. I'll copy paste that as a rule, and then I'll make sure that I call that rule when necessary. So that's a great question. And I saw the screen's a little far from me. Is it Akila?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
okay,
Patrick.
listen. Hey, how you
One
doing?
question. Great. When would you use a rule versus a document to enrich the context? What would be the difference in those
Okay.
two types of documents?
Great question. Keep your rules short, okay? I like to keep my rules nice and short. So that way when I call, because if I'm going to call the rule, it's going to call the entire file. Okay. Now in a documentation can get freaking 900 lines long sometimes, depending on like where you're getting the documentation from. So I'll give you a really quick example. And I built out this documentation for Arweave, and it's a really quick file. It's just a text file, basically. If I go to Turbo and then go to the Turbo SDK, and then I have like this raw SDK text file, okay? And I can copy this entire text file, and then I go back over to Cursor, and then let's say I create a file just called doc, or a folder called docs, and I'm going to create an MD file called Arweave.md, and then I paste this thing. This motherfucker's freaking 1,200 lines long. So I want to have my docs file not a rule, and the reason why is because inside of Cursor, I can take segments of the documentation that I may need. So let's say I specifically want to look up this one component that I know I'm going to use. I'm sorry, I'm filling in because I don't expect you guys to know this, but I know Arweave really well. So I'm going to use Turbo Factory. There we go. Cool. All right. Core concepts, Turbo Factory. And I want to use this core concepts of Turbo Factory. I'm going to highlight just core concepts. And then I'm going to press, as it says here, Command L, or I can just click this button that says Add Chat. So now you're going to see in the chat here at the very bottom here, it says Arweave.md, but it's only taking the context of lines 99 through 131. Okay, so that's really important. You don't want to always feed the entire file. If you you got it, yeah. So you don't want to feed the entire file every single time. You just want to add the context of that section, okay? And this could be like, I don't necessarily need an MCP server or something like this because maybe I'm only using this for such a small piece of my project that I just need to use this context for like small things, okay? And so in this case, highlight the section that you're really referring to, and then make sure you feed that in, okay? And so that's a great reason as to why you wouldn't put docs as a rule, unless the docs page itself is hyper specific. It's probably less than 50 lines. I could make that a rule. But if it is like hundreds of lines of code, then I'm going to try to keep that as short as possible. Another thing that is important is understanding when you're using AI models, when you pick a specific AI model, as I do down here. So if I'm clicking here, and let's say I'm using, okay, this is actually really cool. So 3.7 has roughly about, I think it's like 2 million tokens. Correct me if I'm wrong. Roughly about 3.7 is like roughly 2 million tokens. So you can get a lot in there, quite a bit. And then 2.5 has even more. There's like, I think it's like 20 million tokens, something crazy like that. And correct me if I'm wrong again. It's a huge context window. So I can fit a lot of shit in.
Let me check that.
Yeah, check it for me. It's like, oh no, I think the pro plan is 20 million, but the regular 2.5 is 10 million, I think. Again, update me when you find it. But then 03 is a very small context window. But why the hell would I use a smaller context window? Well, 03 is really freaking good at math. It's really good at math. So if I know that I'm building something that is very heavy on mathematical principles, then I'm going to use a smaller context window for more accuracy. But I also want to make sure that I don't overdo the context window. So just try to keep that kind of stuff in mind. It's important to remember, okay, if I'm using this model, I have about this much of a context window. I'm using this model, so I only have this much. So I need to be hyper specific about my prompts. Okay, I hope that helped. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, white scribes, crisis of anxiety, anybody?
2.5 Pro preview has the 1 million token input limit, but the model has the 10 million limit on itself. I don't know why they would limit it less than that in the API, but I know that you can feed a lot of stuff with it.
Yeah, it's freaking wild. Yeah, and that's my little blurb about context windows. Okay, cool. All right, I think helped hit. I do use, by the way, I do use like a folder of like documentation stuff like that. I do that sometimes, and so that that is totally okay. I recommend that in any case. Like I feel like I need to have very clear details on documentation in here. A little step that is very important to see is like you're going to start seeing a lot of documentation. Literally have a copy button at the top of the documentation page, so it's easier to just paste into your project. A good example of this would be like story protocol. Story protocol. A friend of mine actually built out the documentation, and here we go. Yes, story foundation, and then go to their. Oh, don't give me this whole like awesome loading stuff. Let's go to build documentation. Cool. And then you're going to see stuff like this. Okay, so like smart contract guide here. I see this copy page. So I literally click that and it just copies the page. This is important. Oh, I can give you this context. You know, you can probably feed in, I can do this where I can copy the links by simply typing. I use Arc, so it's like Shift Command C or whatever, but that just copies the URL for me. All right, now I go back here, and if I want to add in the documentation, I can paste that, and it hyperlinks the documentation, so it scans that. But you're not using your context window properly, because it's going to get context from everything. It's going to get context from the page, but it's also going to get context from like all the navigation that's unnecessary to it. It's going to context from like all the different images or anything like that that is all there. You don't want to always use links. You want to try to just use as accurate of the context as you can. So I don't recommend always using hyperlinks. Go ahead.
And sometimes they even ban the IP of the servers of Cursor when they are hitting too much the documentation page, and then you just get a 404. I had a lot of examples like that happening to some people because they're being massively hit from the same IPs of Cursor, and then like Cloudflare, whatever they are using back there, is blocking that. So either you do this call client side and do some manual rag like I did, Patrick, or you copy the whole text file, which is like a brilliant solution, and put there in the docs.
Yep. Yeah. So just so you know, I don't recommend using hyperlinks. I recommend using like just copying the sections that you need or using that copy button. Okay. You're going to see a lot more of that happen inside the documentation very, very soon. Okay. Now let's get into the so I talked about the rules. I talked about like how to, set up documentation. And I talked about a little bit of my prompting flow, stuff like that. Let's talk about the MCP server stuff now. Getting like kind of the top of the hour, but that's okay. So cursor directory, again, used to be just these copy paste cursor rules. Still does that. So I go to cursor directory, and I can go to this button that says rules. And these are just like copy paste rules that I can put into as rules inside of cursor. So like I can look something up, like I'm building a React project. So I could use something like this. Or I'm building an Expo project, React Native, Flutter, Tailwind, Byte, all that stuff. It's all in here, okay? Really, really cool stuff. But there's also now, they didn't have this before, they have MCPs. So now they have all of these MCP servers that I can look up, search for, and find, that could help me build out my project, okay? And there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different MCP server stuff in here. So, I mean, if I need to do something with a Vercel integration, if I need something for GitHub, if I need something for Upstash, if I need anything, really, I mean, everybody is coming out with their own context servers. As a matter of fact, there's a Cloudflare one right here, but and a hyperlink that I had on the presentation. Here we go. Go to the very end here. There we go. Can I copy that? Oh. Okay, so Cloudflare, as you can see in the title, it says 13 new MCP servers specifically for Cloudflare. So, I mean, everybody is coming up with these very hyper-specific tooling for MCP servers for you to use, okay? And this is for anything and everything you can think of. If you need an MCP server for designing things, they have MCP servers for like Eternity UI. I think Magic UI .design has its own MCP server as well, and they build immaculately beautiful UIs for your projects and stuff like that. And that's just an awesome MCP server system to use. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure somebody has created a, where is it? Oh, here we go. Somebody has created a MCP server specifically for, let's see here. I'll just go home. Here we go.
Yeah, rules. Yeah.
For like ShadCN. If I type in ShadCN, I'm pretty sure I'll come up with a couple MCP servers somewhere in here. Oh, that's actually just pulling up the rules, but yeah.
You're searching the rules, yes.
Yeah, I am searching the rules, sorry. But yes, I'm sure if you go through the MCP servers and everything, you will find somebody that has created a ShadCN MCP server, all kinds of different stuff. So one of the things that you want to do early on, I actually mentioned this to Matthias earlier, is when it comes to vibe coding, if anybody's heard of this quote, earlier I think I said it was Abraham Lincoln. It's probably somebody else, who knows. I think it's Abraham Lincoln quote, but it's the quote of like, you know, if you had 1 hour to cut down a tree with an axe, what would you do in that? How would you do it in that 1 hour with an axe? And the response is, I would sharpen my axe for 50 minutes, and then I would cut down the tree in 10 minutes. And so what I recommend for everybody is take the time to plan out your project as thoroughly as possible before you actually start jumping in and start coding. Don't totally rely on just that chat bar to spit out all the correct answers for you. Take the time to set up your rules. Take the time to set up your documentation. Take the time to set up your MCP servers. Look up MCP servers based on the tech stack that you have planned to use and things like that. Have that all set up. And then when you have done all the work of setting that up, then you prompt. Once you've done that, and you're going to get significantly higher and better results than if you take the time to plan, prepare, and then prompt. Akila, go ahead.
Hey, Patrick. Sorry, I just wanted to call out the MCP for the UI design that you mentioned. I just want to type it in for everybody.
Go ahead.
Do you have it? I heard the name that you said.
Excellent. Yeah, this is a great one. Let me just show off my trifecta of like UI. Of course, you've got ShadCN. For those that don't know, ShadCN, very easy, light components, really great for like Next.js and stuff like that. But they have, if I go to documentation and then I go to, frameworks. All these different frameworks. You got Next.js, Vite, Laravel. So pick your poison. If you build with these type of frameworks or anything like that, it supports it. Now, a couple others that I like to use is I think it's Aceternity. I'm spelling that wrong. There it is, Aceternity UI. That's another one. It's just more robust components for like for UI. I really like these components, and you can go to these components, jump in here, click on one, and then like you can actually see what the component does. So it actually like demonstrates what the component does. So ShadCN does that. Eternity does that, and then the other one is, I believe it's Magic UI.design. Might be wrong. Oh, nope, got it. These are even more robust like components. You get some like really crazy looking shit in here. Like this one's like a marquee. It's like a really cool interactive marquee, and it's just like a copy paste code thing. And there are MCP servers for like Magic. There are MCP servers for Eternity. There are MCP servers for ShadCN. So look up those things that you plan on using, set up the MCP server, and then prompt it. So now making sure how to interact with MCP servers. Some are different than others. So make sure you clearly read the documentation to understand how to prompt the MCP servers to get the most accurate responses from those MCP servers, or not responses, but results. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, wine scribes.
Maybe a small cherry on top of the cake there. If you go for context 7, it's an MCP server for finding all the documentations of all the MCP servers, and it's like a entry funnel. Whenever you're using your AI for things, you can install that context 7, and it's going to point you out for shared CN, for whatever context.
Complex 7, like the number?
With an N of nose, context.
Oh, context. I said sorry, context. 7.
Yes.
MCP. There we go.
This is one. And it's like golden for me when I
Oh,
found this thing.
shit.
You just tag
Bro,
it,
this is beautiful.
install the MCP server, you tag it, and it's going to find the up-to-date doc for you on whatever thing you want to use. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's another thing. When you're prompting, you always want to make sure that the responses to the prompt are the most up-to-date prompts responses. A good example of that is if you like to build with Tailwind. If you're relying on the AI to set up Tailwind properly, it's going to do it off of version 3. Even though version 4 came out like almost 3 months ago, it's still relying on version 3 setup. And if you're building with like Next.js version 15, then you're going to end up with some incompatibility issues. And so it's always, always, always very, very important to make sure that you have the most up-to-date context. So this is actually a great MCP server to have. I'm gonna have to set this one up later and see what kind of results and stuff I get out of it. Really freaking cool.
People, vibe coding smart contracts, and then the AI suggesting them to use Truffle, which was deprecated like 2 years ago. You know, this happens a lot.
Yeah. I still remember all the sad comments of when like, oh man, that's how I started learning how to be a smart contract developer back in Truffle days. And people started selling Truffle shirts, Truffle logo shirts on like on eBay for like hundreds of dollars. But anyways, also I'll have to dig up the link for you. But there is a MCP server. I'll find it as soon as I can, for taking whatever open source project that you developed, and not you developed, but like somebody else developed. You can clone the project, set up the MCP server, and it will re-engineer and write a full tutorial on how to rebuild that project from the ground up. And so like if you want to, like you could take a project that's like an LMS, like a learning management system, something like that, where you want to build your own what's called Udemy or something like that. There's some open source projects of that. You want to build yours from the ground up, but maybe you don't want to use the login system they're using, or maybe you don't want to use the video system that they're using or whatever. You can use that MCP server to basically re-engineer the entire thing, and like gives you a full step-by-step, very clear, full step-by-step tutorial, step-by-step. And then you can just say, hey, okay, I'm going to take this file, I'm going to put it as a doc, and then I'm going to have a conversation with my AI to take out the components that I don't want to use, and then input the components that I do want to use. Maybe I'm switching from like Clerk, which is very common in like tutorial videos and stuff, and I want to switch it out with like Web3 auth or something like that. And so that'll actually help you set that up and everything. So there are MCP servers for practically everything. So I do recommend checking out some MCP servers. Do your due diligence, making sure that it's coming from a reputable source, and then from there, just test them out. They're going to be great MCP servers to use, and then there's going to be MCP servers like, I don't even know if it's working or not. And so, take the time to test things out. I look at MCP servers the same way as I looked at the early days of like apps on the iPhone. You're gonna see a bunch of like apps that are like, this is cool, and you're gonna see a bunch of apps that are like, this is janky. Like, why did I download this thing? This is ridiculous. And so that's MCP servers in a wrap. Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, wine squares, crisis, anxiety. I sorry, because everybody is using Cursor. I will show you guys really quick. You can go to your Cursor settings. So make sure you go to settings, go to Cursor setting, and you can find your active MCP servers here. So you got general, features, models, rules, and MCP servers. So I have a couple of active MCP servers in here. Both of them actually are the Magic UI one. I like to delete and then reinstall MCP servers all the time because they don't automatically update on their own. Okay, that is a clear point. So maybe your MCP server is getting a little old and it's had a few updates. Well, not all MCP servers automatically update here. So it is important to make sure that you are trying to make sure you're using the most updated version of MCP servers. Some are intended to actually automatically update, but not many. How many lines should I active in cursor? So when you say how many lines of code should you have and I actually missed a question just before that. Do you have any recommendations or organizational schemes for efficiently learning how your app works after you've built it with vibe coding? Yeah. Okay.
It happens a lot. You have an app working and then you scratch your head. I don't have an idea how, but it's working.
Can you imagine if like you're an engineer and you're late on a project, you're just like, fuck, I'm just gonna vibe code this thing out, and then you present it to you and we're like, okay, how it works. You're like, I'm fucking it's like, I don't know. That's a great question. So I try to make sure that I'm always setting up some sort of context and making sure that it's remembering what it's done in some sort of like document or something like that. Let me see if I actually have this file open. There's our drive CLI. Here we go. Okay, this is kind of a bigger project. This is actually where I'm actually trying to set up a integration to A2A. So there's a lot of lines of code here. So I'm gonna actually try to clean this up so it's a little bit easier to digest here. Let me get rid of some of these terminals and just clear out all this crazy stuff here. Okay, cool. All right, and then I'm gonna have, okay, so I have this docs folder here. Let's really try to minimize this as much as possible. There we go, cool. All right, that's much better. A lot easier to read. I have this docs folder, and this is where I pull in documentation. And it's important because maybe some of the technology that I'm playing with here, a good example would be, I have a couple of working examples of like X402, and then I have this file called X402 implementation. And so this implementation is, okay, I got freaking X402 working. I need you to, in a file, explain how the fuck you got it working so that I can explain it later. And so this is important to make sure that you prompt. It's like, okay, let's hit a checkpoint. I got this one thing working. Now, let's set up a file that explains exactly how this works. Even write out a diagram, that visual representation of exactly how this implementation works. So it actually coded out this little like actual visual explanation of exactly how the React UI components works with X402 hook, and then connects to the wallet, and then goes through dynamic XYZ authentication, and then the fetch API and base Sapoli, all that stuff. That's all in there. It explains it very, very detailed. This does two things for me. One, as soon as I need to operate with the X402 components, I can actually add context from this implementation file. Okay, and then two, this also teaches me exactly how this implementation exactly works as well. So it's kind of a little bit of a one and the same kind of thing. You're getting both sides of it, where it's helping you out with your own understanding, but it's also going to help me out continuing on as I progress. And if I need to specifically interact with these components, I have this implementation file that I can use as a reference. I hope that helps answer that question. And then the other question is, how many lines? Oh, is that lines or LLMs? How many LLMs? Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. The text is like really small. How many LLMs should I have active in Cursor? Okay. Do you mean like how many chats you may have open, or maybe how many MCP servers? To be perfectly honest, you want to operate with MCP servers almost the same way as you're operating with rules. You're going to have some MCP servers that are constantly like being used in every single prompt. And then you're going to have some MCP servers that are only being called on when you manually call them. Okay. So
yeah, sorry, Patrick. I meant actually Gemini, Claude. Which ones and how many? I mean,
Okay, so let me just demonstrate and just take a look at this and see if this is what you mean. Let's say I have this chat, but then maybe I have an additional chat up here that's also doing something else. Is that what you mean?
No, in settings. When you go in settings, you see the models.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with having all of them, but I don't use the, just so you know, I don't use this auto select model. I prefer, like, I do my research. I find out, okay, based on this project, and you can do this too during your whole setup process. As you plan out your roadmap, you plan out everything, you can also ask, hey, what AI model is going to be the best for this? And then you can just consistently use that single model. But then in your file settings, which you're referring to, you're referring specifically to cursor settings, models, and you're referring to this. Okay. There's nothing wrong with having every single one of them checked. You're not calling on every single one of them. The only one you're calling on is the one you have selected. Okay. So there's really nothing wrong with that, but it is important for you to do your due diligence and understand what model is going to be best for the project you're working on at that moment. A good rule of thumb though, if you're just whipping out some code and everything, to be perfectly honest, 3.7 is a really great baseline. If you're just putting together something pretty easy, simple to the point, Anthropic has some of the best outputs when it comes to building projects inside of Cursor. So just stick to 3.7 if you just don't want to do too much research. But if you're going to take your time and you know you're building out a really, really big project, do your due diligence and figure out what AI model is going to be best for you. There are going to be times where we're going to switch from one AI model to the next. There are times that I do switch to 2.5, and I just want to feed a freaking ton of context to an AI model so that it fully understands what I'm trying to figure out, or maybe I'm trying to get it to summarize what is happening in a specific, part of my code, or maybe even all of my code. I'll use Gemini 2.5 because I know the context windows are massive for that. But then for Cursor rules, for Claude, I'm looking for accuracy. For O3, I'm looking for math, very accurate, high level math. So like, it just depends on the problem you're trying to solve.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Akila, go ahead.
Hey, Patrick, let me know if I'm asking too much, but
no, dude, come on. I'm here all night. Let's do this.
Just to figure out, since Gemini has a larger context window, does it make sense to troubleshoot with it rather than using Claude once a problem comes up?
Yes and no. So yes, in the sense that it could take in a lot of context. No, depending on the complexity of the problem. So if the problem is a mathematical problem, and it's fairly small, then I'm going to use O3. But especially if I'm coding in Python. Python, like O3 and Python are just they're in love with each other. But if it's something that is I'm focusing on a couple of components, and I've narrowed down the problem to a specific area. I'm going to use 3.7. Okay, I'm going to use Claude 3.7. But if I have no freaking clue what's happening and I don't know where the issue is or anything, and I'm just going to throw a bunch of context in there, then I'll use Gemini. But sometimes Gemini isn't always going to, even with the new levels of accuracy based on benchmarking and everything, even though those benchmarks are super, high for 2.5, I would still sometimes try to narrow down my problem and use something like 3.7. But you could use Gemini to at least narrow down the problem to a specific area, and then you can use something like Claude or O3 to be able to get more accurate context as to what your problem is and solve it.
What's
Great.
your preferred? What was the one you prefer, Patrick?
Like, what's my baseline go-to?
Yeah, what's your preferred AI? You might have one personal one that you get for the most difficult problems that you have, right? And the other ones are just for you to play with. Yeah,
I think right now I have my own benchmarking tool, so I need to, and it works with like hyperbolic in the back end. For those that don't know, hyperbolic is like, it's like AI inference, meaning like I can I could use any freaking model that you can imagine and just plug it in using this API. And I have a benchmarking tool that allows me to test accuracy based on specific benchmarks. And so I always go back and check, because every single model gets regular updates. So 3.7 is slightly different this week than it is last week. Okay, so it is important to look at benchmarks and stuff like that. But my baseline is rough. Most of the time is Claude 3.7 with thinking on, and I like to have thinking on because thinking allows it to separate different parts of what it's trying to do into different steps, and it becomes more accurate. And it kind of almost in the thinking model, it's like it's getting these like mini pre-prompts based off of your prompt, and it's breaking down the problem into smaller sections. But it does get more expensive. So like so that is something to think about. So I do like 3.7.
Banger model. It is thinking all the time, self-questioning. It's great for function calling too, so you don't need to re-ask for the model to call this specific thing that you try to call. Is great for MCP calling too. I like it.
Yeah, Sergio.
Patrick, another question.
Go ahead.
There is a tool similar to Context 7, which Matteo shared, called MCP.SO. How do we edit it in Cursor? I already have Context 7, but I want to add MCP.SO as well.
Okay, so you want to add that MCP server inside of Cursor, and you're trying to use Context 7 and Context SO.
Because you have an option. Context 7 is already there, and you have an option. I can share my screen. I can show you. You can add another global MCP server. It says.
Okay, so what I do try to do is, give me just a second. Let me look at this and see if it's this setting is here. Okay. Number one is, and let me share my screen again. Because I have 2 MCP servers turned on right now. There we go. Cool. All right. So MCP servers generally are mostly just like JSON. Okay. And so what I'll do is I have these 2 MCP servers on, and if I want to, let's say, edit a specific MCP server, I can go in here, use the AI itself to update this so that the MCP server is only being used at specific points. So if I want to use Context 7 at certain points, I would edit it so that it is only being used during certain prompts or when I'm manually calling it. And then I would do the same thing for like .so. Now for installing, if that's also part of the question too, I just click on active install, and then I can actually paste the mcp.json file here, and that will set everything up, run the script and everything, and then download the MCP server itself. And so yeah.
Where do I get this for MCP.SO? The link that I shared with you.
The link, let me take a look. Let's find out. We're going to go on a journey together. Let's see here. Okay, MCP, global MCP servers. Tools. Okay, what is MCP servers? Global MCP servers is a collection. So this is .so is just it seems like it is just a marketplace. I personally have not seen this.
Okay.
But it looks like it's just a marketplace. Oh, here, hold on. MCP servers. Okay, include MCP servers, Comfy UI, GitHub, Brave, Supabase. To install MCP servers globally. Okay, so it looks like you would clone this repo, CD into the MCP server, and then you're going to actually export a GitHub token, Brave, Search, Supabase. Okay, I will say this. I got red flags coming up really quick. I would be a little haphazard on just handing over my GitHub token. So yeah, be careful with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I would always, that's something. Now I don't mind. Like, let's say I would grab this link here, copy that, paste that. Okay, and then I can go into like the server. Most of the time, you're gonna find the stuff in like the servers. Go to GitHub, and then run .sh, and then you can feed this into the AI and like, yo, is there anything in here that's malicious? Like, should I be concerned with any of the scripts in here? And then I could do the same thing on every single one of these folders. And so like I would probably feed in each script and be like, is there anything malicious in here? Is there anything malicious in here? And as an engineer, I'm going to read it very carefully too. But it's really, really important to make sure if I see anything that's like, hey, I need your keys, I'd be like, no. So like, just really be very considerate about, what you're installing. So that goes back to like the privacy and security element, because you don't want an MCP server that has the ability to scrape for key files. Us Web3 people, we got key files on our computers sometimes, and these key files are the keys to the kingdom of all our crypto. And the last thing that we need is an MCP server to identify, oh, here's a freaking, Ethereum key. Let's automatically use a script to patch that into a MetaMask and then have that all transferred out. And that shit happens like that. Like the moment you download it and everything, that shit's already gone. It's gone. And so you got to be super duper careful. You be very, very understanding that these MCP servers, I'll go back to here. Okay. You want to pay attention to this right here. Let's go to here. Okay, take a look at this. This command, mpx args y, and then it's downloading this, okay? So I can see right here that there is this package that is being installed, okay? Now this package, I have no idea what's in this package. You got to be really, really careful with that. Now, if it's coming directly from MPX, most likely it's safe. But somebody can easily put in here a command that is more like git clone this and then run this script. And that script could be to scrape your entire computer for keys and private information. So you do want to be careful for that. If I see an MPX here, it's probably pretty safe. But if I see a node script in here, I ain't fucking touching it. There's no way I'm touching that. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're looking at MCP servers. Pay attention to the scripts. If there's any doubt in your mind about safety or anything, always trust your gut on that kind of stuff. Don't fall down the rabbit hole just because you want some shiny MCP server that you saw. Node switch. So like, hold on. First, let me make sure it looks like the name of the MCP server that allows to clone open source projects.
But you have the link for that project. You mentioned that you can just pass open source repository is going to build that open source tool from scratch, right?
Yeah, let me dig really quick. I have so many freaking repos in here. Give me a second. And I believe I put this thing in my personal file or something like that. Personal projects. Here we go. Let me pull this up really quick. Let's see. Okay. Pause for effect. There you go.
You need
Open
an
this up.
MCP server for your own repositories, bro.
Dude, I'm telling you, man, I've got so much stuff in here. It's not even funny. Here we go. All right, I believe I put that. Let me look at my Finder again. Yeah, okay, that's in CD into personal projects, and then that is the LS. That's CD into tutorial knowledge base. There we go, and then code here, and then I'm just gonna do this the lazy way and say, what is the repo that this project is connected to? And that'll run the Git script for it. It didn't necessarily need the thinking, but here it is. Okay, copy this. I'll put it in the chat for you guys. There you go. There. There you go.
It's so
And so
interesting how we're making those AIs so humans that they're even overthinking as we do, right?
yeah. Yeah, it goes through like a thinking process and everything. So this is a repo that you can clone, follow the steps on the repo and everything. And it will spit out a full tutorial with visuals and everything on exactly how to rebuild a project. And so, yeah, you can use that. It's really, really pretty cool. Hopefully that helps. Questions, other questions? Let's see what else. Anything else? Questions, comments, concerns, complaints? I can talk about anything. If you want to go off topic, doesn't have to be about MCP servers specifically. We could talk about other things too.
Any more questions from the audience? I see some people
I
joining
have
in
another
late.
question, if I may.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir, go.
Patrick, I've seen the current company you're working for. You've done quite a bit of work in Web3.
You're talking about RAO?
No, IDS, is it? Patrick, give me a second.
PDS?
The PDS
PDS,
company, yeah?
sorry, yes.
Yeah, PDS is short for Permanent Data Solutions, and they currently own or they built Rdrive, which allows you to do permanent static deployments of like front end or data or anything like that permanently for a minimum of 200 years. So you do like one payment, and then like it stores data for 200 years, and like you don't have to pay again. So it's pretty freaking cool, and that's Rdrive. And then RAO is decentralized gateways, where a good example could be like, here, I'll just share my screen on what that is. Let's go to this screen. And then I'm going to pull up a separate browser. Let's use. Where did my other browsers go? I've got too many freaking screens open right now. Oh, here we go. Okay, cool. All right, let's pull this one up. Perfect. Okay, so I built out a starter kit for stuff like, you know, pretty much what we were talking about. For like, let's say I'm so tired of having to pay monthly for my portfolio page. Okay, I have to pay for the freaking domain every year. I got to pay for hosting every month. I got to pay for all this stupid shit, right? Well, with RAO and Rdrive, I can actually build let's say a portfolio page and deploy that on Rdrive for very cheap. And it is their guaranteed minimum 200 years. I just make one payment. It's pretty freaking cool. So here's an example of that.
How much is it one payment?
It depends on the size of the file. Okay, so if you have a huge freaking repo, you have like a huge application, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But I can actually run a deployment for you just to see how cheap it is. But my biggest apps, I think, cost me like $5 in the deployment, roughly $5. But it comes out in like a cryptocurrency, and I can explain how that kind of works too. But essentially, I'll give you an example. This one's like a quiz app. Oh, that's on the local. 1 second. It's a cubic, or sorry, quiz _0 to arweave.r.io. There we go. Okay, so this is like a quiz app I built on the Arweave ecosystem, and this is going to be here for 200 years, and with that domain. Okay, I don't have to pay for that domain every single month or every single year. I permanently own it. I don't have to pay for the hosting. I paid a one-time fee for this application. It's a built-in quiz app. So the backend is built on a system called AO, which is like the virtual machine for Arweave. It's got a leaderboard, all that stuff. It's got logins, all that stuff. And I think it cost me roughly like $3 to deploy this thing, maybe even cheaper. And so, yeah. So now to give you an example of like the gateways, RIO gateway, I can use multiple gateways. So the website is quiz_0 to Arweave. Okay. Now I can type in arweave.net. It's same website. I can type in freaking quiz app, and I think Arweave. There's a bunch of them. I don't think arweave.org is one. Maybe. No, see, that one's not it. But there's like 400 different gateways. So if for some reason a gateway gets shut down, something like the gateway provider gets shut down, anything like that, there are like 400 other gateways to access this. So what's a use case for that? Like, why the hell do I even need that? Well, you need gateway providers because gateway providers is a centralized system that is a pain in the ass. And so if somebody stops providing a gateway, then even though your data is permanently deployed on the Arweave ecosystem, if the gateway is down, there's no way to access it. A use case for this is freaking Venezuela. So Venezuela has this impossible task of trying to limit information that's going in and out of the country. And so they actually use Arweave to communicate to each other because they have these applications where they have these forums where they can privately communicate to each other and post information in a public way where people from the public can read this information. And freaking, the president would be like, oh, take this blog down. Well, you got 400 gateways to go through, buddy. Good luck. And so there's no way for them to go through all those freaking gateways and try to take down some information that is, public like that. And so that's, it's what we call censorship resistant. So censorship resistance, you got permanence of data for 200 years, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that, and so like a good starter kit for that, if you want to play with it, good starter for that. Good for that. I'll post it in the group. I built this starter kit not too long ago, a few months ago. It's 0 to.
I could definitely save some money. Take into account I own more than 40 domain names.
Oh yeah. So I'll show you exactly what that looks like. How to deal with domains. But let's see, 0. This doesn't even look right. Hold on. Let's see. R-IO. And this is a user. There you go. RIO. And then the starter kit is 0 to, there it is. Perfect. Okay, so you can clone this starter kit. Feel free to do whatever you want with this thing. And it already has the deployment scripts and everything. It actually, if you read the documentation, it has the full tutorial on how to get the crypto that you need and then be able to use that crypto to do deployments, all this stuff. Actually, as a matter of fact, I just finished a video on how to even get that crypto with like a credit card, all that stuff. So like really, really cool, easy stuff. And then as far as like the domains go, you just go to r.io. Oh, I'm sorry, no, rns.app. The rns.app, I'll post the link for that right here. And so like I will, do I have my wallets? What browser am I in right now? Okay, cool, yeah. No, actually I need to switch browsers here, one sec. There we go. RNS.app. There we go. And then this is going to automatically connect to my wallet here. Perfect. And then I can see like the different URLs here. Now you could purchase domains for like what's called a leasing. You can lease them for 1 to, why is that loading so slow? You can lease them to 1 to 5 years, or you can do what's called permabuy. And so I do have, it's going to show my assets. Oh, there it goes. Excellent. So I have a couple that expire. That's, these expire in 2027, 2027. But then I have a few of these that are indefinite, meaning I permabought them. Okay. And then I can set up undernames. So let's say on this one, I set up this undername here. Go to here, and the undername is just a subdomain. And oh yeah, that's the actual link here. Sorry, 1 second. Go here. And so that quiz app is one of these undernames. So I can go to manage, and then there's quiz. Okay. But I do like hackathon projects or just demos and stuff like that of what you can do in the Arweave ecosystem as subdomains on all of these. So if I click here, it's a different application. It's just another demo that I did. And then CrossMint, so like CrossMint integration to like Arweave, that's another one that I did. And so like these are all clonable apps and stuff that you can clone from me that I built. I build out apps and just give them out for free. That's literally like, that's my whole job. And so let's see, to be able to get your RNS app, let's just go through the process. I could say, I'm going to make one specifically for MCP servers. Okay. And I want this app. It's going to load out the price for me. So the price is roughly about $14.88 USD, or 3.27 K RIO. RIO is that cryptocurrency. Okay, I can click register, and I can register this from 1 to 5 years. Okay, 1 to 5 years, or I can click buy, and that's a permanent purchase. Is going to so that permanent purchase of that URL is $62. Now, to permanently own a domain, that's a freaking great price. And so I can go click on that. I have the option to buy it with a credit card. I can buy it with crypto, or I can buy it with turbo credits. I'm not going to go down the
Can I
road.
buy any domain extension here?
Anyone that is a gateway. Okay, so like I'll show you gateways. Gateways.art.io. Okay. And so like as soon as you permanently purchase anything, it can access to any of these available gateways. Okay, so I click on gateways, and you've got all of these gateways. So like permagate.io. So if I go to that app that 0 to arweave.art.io, if I change that to permagate.io, it pulls up my app. Like any of those gateways work. So I see dno.top. I see a lot of rfrost.xyz, arweave.ph, which is that's the community from the Philippines for Arweave. So they have their own managed gateways. rnode.asia, permadao.io, which is a community in China. rdrive.net, that's in New York. But yeah, and so like again, like look at this scroll. Any of these gateways work. Any of them. Yeah.
So what's the
So,
MCP server for getting the best?
We got one. We got one. So we
That's
do have an
nice.
MCP server for this. It's still being tested and everything. So follow me on X. You could DM me on Telegram, anything like that. But yeah, we do have MCP servers for that. It's still being tested out, but as soon as it's done testing and everything, I'll be more than happy to pass it around.
Got some alpha here.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
But yeah, I know we went off topic a little bit there, but that's really cool information if you want to get domains and stuff like that and be able to deploy your application and not have to worry about monthly hosting and everything. You just do like the one-time payment. It's really freaking, especially what I prefer to do. I like to have like my my own personal like portfolio page, because your portfolio page is just like you with a few hyperlinks and maybe like links to some of your projects. That I don't want to pay monthly for that shit. I don't want to pay $100 for a freaking domain every single year for that. I have that on Arweave. So yeah, that's a good example. Keela, go ahead.
Hey, Patrick, one question. Do you have any preferred models for video or image generation that have an API?
Okay. So there are several different ones that have come out, and I'm going to be perfectly honest. My opinion might be slightly old on this, because I haven't really looked at this and I really haven't built any like genuine projects or anything on this quite yet. I will say the best audio generation. So this is called TTS. And so if you want to look for models for best TTS stands for text to speech. Okay. 11, what is it? TTS 11. What is that freaking thing? 11 Labs. 11 Labs is the best right now for voice cloning. And so if you can freaking run whole movies for a specific character or whatever and clone an actor's voice and stuff through 11 Labs. It's really freaking crazy cool. As a matter of fact, I'm that's a personal project. I've been building out my own Jarvis, and I've been trying to clone the actor's voice so I can have the legitimate Jarvis voice. I am such a kid. I'm such a child in that, but I can't wait until I have that project done, because I want Jarvis so bad. So I'm gonna have him, I promise you. But the problem is I can't share him because that'll be like technically, I think, illegal. But yeah, I've been working on that myself.
You can tell that it coded itself up, and then you cannot take the blame for that, right?
Yeah, dude, my MCP server went wild. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry.
I'm not
Sure,
a
go
lawyer,
ahead.
but I guess you can slide this. We have a question here from Asante, I guess. Is that your name?
Oh, Asante.
Yes, that's perfectly
Perfect.
pronounced. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's again, I'm trying to reconcile my understanding of RAGs and MCPs. So I'm wondering if you can build MCPs for RAGs.
I don't see why not. I'm going to be honest. I don't see why you can't really build MCP servers for almost anything. Because let's put it this way: an MCP server, at the end of the day, is a script that executes specific actions. So if at the end of the day, if your MCP server is nothing but an NPX to execute a specific package, and that package is just a wrapper for a RAG, why not? Yeah. So and then at the same time, what if that package is a package that helps you create RAGs? And or it's a package that creates MCP servers for RAGs or anything like that. I mean, that is all very possible. Yes. So I would say you can look, to be honest, you can look at it this way. You can look at MCP servers as just wrappers for RAGs. You could look at it very well that way. Just like I'm sure you guys have vibe coded enough to realize like all these fucking ads you see on like Instagram for all these like AI things. We all know those are just wrappers for just ChatGPT half the time. And so with a few pre-prompts and stuff like that. It's like, oh, here's your AI motivator, something like that. Dude, that's just a freaking ChatGPT with like a pre-prompt in it. And it's just a wrapper with the API. A lot of these MCP servers are just wrappers for RAGs in many cases. So if that helps you reconcile your definition between like what a RAG is versus an MCP server. Yes, Kwanze, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, Kwanze. Permanently deployed means you can't override it. To an extent, yes. You can pretty much deploy anything, but you can change the domain. So like, let's say I set up the domain specifically for like that 0 to arweave.r.io. I can point that domain to a new deployment. And all that is like, once I've deployed something, I receive a deployment hash, like a transaction ID. And then I take the domain and that permanent domain, and I point that to that transaction hash. But there's nothing that stops me from pointing that domain that domain to a new transaction hash. Essentially, as I update applications, I'm honestly just pointing that to a new updated version of the application through a transaction hash. It's a new transaction. Yeah. Sorry, my camera's flickering every now and then. Sergio, go ahead.
Patrick, I like the fact that you understand both Web3 and AI. And I have a stealth fintech venture combining AI and blockchain in private markets. Okay, I would love to pick your brains for critical, constructive criticisms, please. Would it be possible for Mateos to put us in touch by email so I can share the details and so you can literally tear it up in a good way?
Yeah,
Maybe
give me
you want to put
just
your
a
socials
second.
in the chat for people to.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and do that. Okay, so my TG, my Telegram is this. My X handle, which I'm pretty responsive to X because anybody in crypto perpetually lives on X.
Crypto Twitter
and
is
then
out there.
Crypto Twitter, yeah, CT. If anybody wants to check out my GitHub, I got lots of I got shit repos, I got great repos. Feel free to just dig through whatever repos I got. I got all kinds of stuff in there. I got stuff for robotics. I've got stuff for Web3. I've got stuff for all kinds of stuff. So yeah, feel free to dig in there a little bit. And then if you want to, oh, here, I think it is, let me just check this link. I think it's this. There we go. Yeah. If you want to just set a meeting with me, more than happy to take meetings with people.
If you have a
There's
QR code
my
or something
cal.com.
like that too, Patrick, and for people who are going to be watching this recording later, they will have the notes. But if you have any QR code, anything for sharing with people too, I can put that.
Oh,
we are planning to get that in a YouTube series too. Then we can put in the description. But for now, it's mostly this video in the drives, and we are structuring things as we go.
And then
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it.
And then there's my actual portfolio page. It's got my YouTube and stuff like that on there. It's got my blog, my GitHub, my Twitter, and then there's actual. I have no idea if this modal is working. Maybe that's an old. No, it works. Okay, cool. And then my calendar is actually actively on there. Feel free to freaking grab some coffee time. That's all good.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
No Tumblr. No, unfortunately, no Tumblr. I think I deprecated my Tumblr many years ago.
You're a nice guy, but you're not my type.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah, I'll dig up my MySpace for you. Aside from that, Akila, go ahead. Sorry, you had your hand up for a while.
Hey, yeah. So this is a total noob question on RAG, but is there any model that you recommend to create a RAG agent that is actually that can live on a web app to pull documents? So what I'm trying to do is get people to upload some documents and extract information that serves them to do some other stuff. So I'm trying to figure out if there's an LLM that actually is good at that.
It's a really good question. So obviously you want to prioritize context window. And so I'm definitely, my immediate choice is if I've got this huge freaking legal document, something like that, I'm definitely going to probably use something off of Gemini. And that's going to be really, really important. I don't necessarily have a RAG specifically for that or something that creates a RAG for that. But I think my immediate thought is you're want to prioritize context window. That's really freaking important. So yeah, Gemini is the first thing that I would jump to for that specifically. I know you could probably generate a RAG for that, and so I would somehow focus on the component itself first, building out that component to be as effective as possible, and do it in a way So my step-by-step process would be, I would do that so that it works as a CLI first, a command line tool. And so if it works as a CLI first, meaning I can go, like, I'm in the repo with that component, okay? And then I've created these node scripts for it to basically say, okay, I want to type in node scripts. I'm going to say summarize. I'm going to call it summarizer, and node summarizer, or you already have it set up as like a local npm package. Then you can just type in summarizer space and then the file, the file link to it, wherever you're operating from, and you want it to be like a 30-page freaking file so you could test the accuracy and the results of that. I would build it as a CLI tool. Then I would then change it, configure it so that it operates as a server-side tool. You don't want to work that. You don't want something like that on client side because it's way too much to work inside a browser. It's too heavy. So get it to work inside of like a node for yourself as a node script, and then get it to work on server side and within a web application. You need to figure out how to host that and deploy it and everything. So you're gonna think about context window, then you're gonna think about inference cost, because of how heavy that's gonna be. Inference cost, in my opinion, best way to go, Hyperbolic. Hyperbolic has some of the best inference cost out there. So take a look at, I'll send the link right here. I know the founder really well, hyperbolic.xyz. These engineers are freaking cracked, really great guys. Try to set up your endpoints, your API endpoints for using Gemini through Hyperbolic, because you're going to get better inference costs there. And then and that could be run as like the backend, like that's what's going to manage your RAG or whatever scripts or whatever you have running on the server side. That would be my recommendation for that.
Great, thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, no problem. I'm pretty sure they may even have tutorials in the documentation for doing something like that. So dig through the documentation. The best documentation doesn't necessarily tell you how to use the tool, but has a bunch of freaking examples on how to do it. So, always look for like working examples on that kind of stuff too. Feel free to feel free to throw out app ideas and stuff at me too. I love building out apps.
Super cool. Well, Manuel, Sergio, everyone here, for having all the questions and all. Patrick has shared all his socials except his Tumblr, but we have all of the links, all of the directions here. Maybe Patrick, you want to give like a closing 1 minute people for building on Arweave, next hackathons, things that you want people to engage with, and then we close with that. We actually went through 2 hours. That's super cool that people were interested, and it was packed good content. So maybe if you want to wrap us with some call to actions for your project.
Yeah, so I've been in the Arweave ecosystem for about 2.5 years, something like that. Feel free to always ask me about permanence and data, and like data storage and stuff like that. But I am really heavily leaning into the AI crypto crossover. So I'm going to pretty soon be working with one or another company in that space. I love teams like Hyperbolic. I love teams like Nevermind. Let me actually send the Nevermind link too. They're really, really early, so just keep that in mind. I probably need to go in there and like clean up their documentation. But Nevermind is a great project. Hyperbolic is a great project. Nice, crypto AI crossover. Guys over Eliza for crypto AI. That one's a little bit more complicated, but still great project. And I think at the end of the day, I don't really have anything to say, oh yeah, this is the action item. Go fork this repo for me or whatever. Guys, I would love, honestly, I would love for you to follow me on X if you're on X. I would love for you to follow me on GitHub. I'm always doing different repos and stuff like that. So feel free to just check out my GitHub and look at the repos that I'm building out. I love building out stuff and just giving it out. So, always feel free to hit me up anytime if you have questions. I love education. So, follow me on X, figure out when I'm doing seminars in different places. I do speak live at events and everything quite often. You'll see me speaking at Permissionless in June in New York. You'll also see me speaking, I think I'm already slotted for Token 2049 in Singapore. And then I am also supposed to be going to like 1 or 2 other events. Just follow me on X. I'll announce them when the time comes. At the end of the day, though, I would just say, guys, I mean, the biggest pain point with vibe coding is getting frustrated. I understand that the AI isn't always going to be, pumping out the right answers and everything. So do the best you can to just practice, figure out what you did right, figure out what you did wrong, and always take the time to prepare, and set up everything, plan, prepare, and then prompt. Take a lot more time doing a lot of the planning and the preparing, and then setting up the prompts and everything. The other part is I do recommend is really break up, very, very heavily break up your agent, so that it's not just this endless flow of just like following some sort of roadmap. Make sure you hit checkpoints, so that way you can test your application instead of trying to let the AI just build up the entire application with no testing. So make sure you hit checkpoints for testing and everything as well. So yeah, I think that's really all I got, guys. I'd love to see you guys in the DM sometimes. Feel free to hit me up if you have questions. Grab some coffee with me. I'm all for it.
Wonderful.
Hey,
A lot of
one
sharpened
last
axes here.
one
Go ahead.
last question, Patrick. On preparing, do you have any best practices to prepare to set up your projects? Other than, so what we captured today was you should set up rules. You have to get documentation. So prepare your documentation. Actually, Matheus taught us this a few sessions ago. Is there any other one? So use the MCPs to get the right context. Is there any other pro tip to prepare in advance of starting the coding?
Aside from caffeine, let's say just I think that's pretty much really it when it comes to planning. The next step, honestly, is be very, very concise with your prompts, and be patient. Like, try to make sure that don't be afraid to cut off the agent, because that shit will run. Don't be afraid to cut off the agent. Make sure, even make sure that it has a rule in there that after so many steps that it tests things. So just try to be patient as it goes through. Test as you're going through it, because if you're not testing, then you're just basically you can get into what we call tech debt or code bloat. That's what we call it. You can end up with bloated code really freaking quick, and you don't want that. And so make sure. I will say this. This is kind of like more like an engineer side of thing, but as I'm testing and as I'm completing executions, I will pause and sometimes call it refactoring, but if anything, I would just say consolidate. I would make sure to put all the components or whatever that I just created and say, let's consolidate this down. Let's remove the things that aren't actively working right now. Try to consolidate as much as possible, because a lot of that bloat just becomes things that just take up context window. And that's a huge pain in the ass. You have like a bunch of code that doesn't even work. And then your AI not only has to figure out where the problem is, it's got to figure out what's working and what's not even working. So take the time to like consolidate your code and after doing some testing and stuff like that too.
Great suggestions. Great suggestion. Manuel, I've heard that Patrick is going to be on New York next month. I might be there too. Maybe we go there to do a barbecue.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Let me know the dates. I may catch a flight.
Yeah.
We just
Dude,
had this
seriously,
barbecue
like,
in Denver. People love it. Patrick, of course, you are involved. You are invited, my friend.
Mateus makes
Yes.
the best Brazilian barbecue, man. I highly recommend.
dude, I mean, if we hit up a good churrascaria, vale. I'm good for it, man. But yeah, I'll be in permissionless. I think it's like June 25th through 27th, something like that. Sorry, my my wife will be there. She's a DevRel as well, and she works in the crypto AI crossover space as well. So she's really cool to talk to and link up with as well. She's got tons of connections in the space, and really solid wealth of information. You can follow. Actually, I'll just post hers too. She's kind of like on a rampage of doing just explainer videos. So feel free to follow her. She just did a explainer video for eigenlayer and restaking and stuff like that. So yeah, all kinds of really cool stuff.
The best stuff. Good. I guess we really cooked it through 2 hours. Patrick, I would like to thank you again for coming.
Am I the longest?
August? Sorry?
Am I the longest? Am I the longest session so far?
I guess only if we keep up for 5 minutes or so. Up to it. Best recipe for barbecues, and then we extend it. We are in a series of 2 weeks only. I guess no, 3 weeks now. So there is not much to compete, but maybe all of the next guests are going to try and beat your high score. I don't know. Then we do a 24-hour vibe coding session. Everyone smoking at the end with their red eyes.
I'm gonna message Austin and Naruto talking shit beat my time 2 hours, baby.
But that's another thing we have planned down the road. Some vibe off, like you vibe code like this. Who gave that idea was Kevin that joined it early. He's doing that vibe crypto vibes with Marcus, and they were discussing ideas of engaging while the AI is chatting. They were with this idea of doing a vibe off. Maybe you go there, Naruto, Austin, Kevin, and everyone vibe code something together. That could be a fun experiment.
I could see some interesting shit being built because Naruto has his expertise in one direction. Austin is very, very specialized in the ETH space and everything. And I'm just kind of fucking everywhere. I don't even know what I'm focused on. So yeah.
A lot of legend.
But yeah, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys attending. I'm so glad that I answered lots of questions and everything, and I'm feel free. The questions never stop, so don't ever stop sending them. I'd be more than happy to answer them in the DMs and stuff like that. Really, really appreciate you guys being here.
That's wonderful. That was it, people. Thank a lot. I'm going to stop recording here.
Cool.
Let me see. Stop recording. Okay.